Well, hey folks, Smudge here again. Boy, do my peoples have a show for you tonight. Joel Salatin from Virginia is going to be here. And he's actually created a special short presentation to give to everybody that's in the stream. And the slides that you're seeing coming up behind me here are the ones that are specially prepared just for our program tonight. He loves questions and answers. So get all your questions together. We'll have a call-in session after the presentation. And I'll just leave you with his bio off the Polyface Farms website, and that'll be coming up directly here. See you tonight. Show starts at 9.
He's telling me that we're live, and I'm trying to type. So I guess we're live. I do this every week. Welcome, folks. We have a great week every week with our guests. There's no doubt in that. We have had great fun with this. Tonight is I don't know what word to use. Outstanding. We can get Jason on here, and he could probably give me a few good words of what to say. I can remember Jason at the Homesteaders of America conference last year when they asked him to sit up on the stage next to Joel. Get to do that again this year, Jason. So anyway, going to have an interesting evening. He is not live, as you will be able to see him like we usually have most of our guests. He is on the phone. Daryl's been chatting with him for the past few minutes. Ask your questions. Make sure you put them in caps. And that way our moderators will catch them. If they don't, I will. If not, somebody will hit me up. And we'll get on with the show and have a wonderful evening. As always, we're going to have our $2 trivias. And some of you, a lot of you, have not been here before, and I know you're here because of Joel. That's fine. I have no problem with that. We have 2 trivias during the hour, and they are trivia questions about our guest. And the first one that Daryl sees on his computer may not be the same on yours. The first one that he sees wins that $2.
The chat will be embedded in the screen.
And the chat will be embedded in the screen, so anyone can go back once the live is over and can check that. We also have started a seed question trivia. There will also be 2 questions, and whoever gets that trivia question, I will send them 5 packs of Baker Creek seeds in the mail. So let's get on with our show. We have a wonderful evening ahead of us. It's all yours.
Joel, are you here still?
Yes, I sure am.
Well,
okay, so,
you are live.
So good. So we've got pictures. Do we have pictures?
We will have pictures.
Yeah, well, it's great. Great to be with you, and we thought the format would work here well by kind of putting up some pictures, and I would just talk through some of these so folks could see some of the things that we do here at Polyface. Are we good to go?
We are good to go, sir.
All right. So the first picture there is a chipper. We have an on-farm chipper. You know, the whole carbon-centric idea of integrating forest land and open land is just not something that people talk about very much. But you know, we're burning up a lot of forests in the U.S. We're spending over $4 billion fighting forest fires, and of course rebuilding houses that get burned. And one of the reasons that this is such a problem is because we don't respect biomass in this country. We're buying chemical fertilizer and petroleum-based fertility from other places instead of actually doing this in situ carbon-centric regenerative soil building on site. And so you know, one of these a chipper like this. You notice this one, we're just chipping right into a manure spreader, and we chip hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of cubic yards of material a year. So we don't spend money on chemical fertilizer, but we do spend a lot of time acquiring and working in the woods and creating carbon, which we use primarily as bedding in the livestock facility. So the next picture are cows in the hay shed with pigs in waiting. You know, the queen has ladies in waiting. Well, we have pigs in waiting, and so this wood chip carbonaceous bedding is like a big carbonaceous diaper under the cows when we're feeding hay. Those cows are dropping 50 pounds of material out their back end every day, and with having this very simple awning over the cows. You notice there's no sides on the we call it the barn. It's really more a hay shed, if you will, but it's a simple awning, and the bedding pack then can build up. It's anaerobic. The cows tromp out the oxygen, and so it actually ferments. It's anaerobic, and as we build that bedding pack, we call it the big carbonaceous diaper. Then we add corn to it, just corn. The corn then ferments in that bedding pack. Then if we go to the next picture, we see the pigs then. Next couple of pictures, we call these pigerators. And so when the cows come out, and interestingly, where we are in the spring here is that the cows have just come out onto pasture. We've been grazing now for a week, and the pigs have been pigerating, so they're seeking the corn. And you can look at the next picture, see all that steam coming up from the pigs. The pigs are on a sauna, and so the thing you have to understand is that this is the heart and soul of the farm, where we're using the forest land as a biomass. So we're working in the woods to take diseased and crooked trees out and dead trees, using those chips as a carbon base to tie down the manure and urine from the cows when we're feeding hay, give the cows a wonderful, warm, fermenting, soft diaper to lounge on, and then the pigs are aerating it like a big egg beater, turning it into aerobic compost, and then when that's done, we spread that on the fields as our fertility program. And so, you know, if you think about big picture, I think it's important to realize that in our country right now, we have a real problem as we move into this service-oriented artificial intelligence age. You know, 40% of the population doesn't aspire to work at a Dilbert cubicle at the end of an expressway punching numbers into cyberspace for the man. 40% of the people actually like to do things with our hands, you know, build things. We like calluses, we like splinters, we like to touch and smell and taste and feel the stuff that we do in the day. And you know, we've been called blue collar in the past in a little bit of a, you know, a marginalistic, condescending type of way. But this sector of the population needs affirmation. We can't just kick people like us to the side and say, well, you're not important if you don't, you know, want to just do robotics or make, you know, nanotechnology particles to course through everybody's veins. You know, what's wrong with you? You actually want to, you know, sculpt things, craft things, make things, do things, have calluses? What's that about? And so this carbon-centric idea, if it were widely adopted, if it displaced all the chemical fertilizer in the country, we would have a multi-billion-dollar carbon economy with craft woodworkers creating biomass to be composted to eliminate chemical fertilizer and build noble sacred vocations for people who want to actually viscerally participate in their ecological umbilical. That's a profound cultural idea. It has social implications, it has emotional implications, and it certainly has economic implications. Okay, when the pigs are done with that, then they go out on pasture. That's the next picture. Pigs out on pasture, and they'll pick up, you know, 30-35% of their diet off of pasture. They actually will eat a lot of grass, and we move them from paddock to paddock every few days, and they actually create kind of the pasture for themselves. Most of these are cut over areas. Some of the areas on rental ground are, you know, old cornfields or something, and we'll put pigs on, and gradually the pigs just, you know, they bring grass, and because we are moving them all the time, and so yes, they do, you know, tear it up, but they're only there for a couple of days, and then it's a long rest period, and then they come back. So the idea here is embedding those pigs. There's no smell, there's no offensive, you know, odor or anything like that, and it's so embedded in the nest, if you will, in the ecological nest, that if you were driving by on the interstate, you wouldn't even know pigs were being raised there. And I think that's a kind of a cool aesthetic benchmark of good farming. Is that, does good farming create the landscape, or does good farming embed itself in the landscape? And I think too often our industrial orthodoxy with our factory farms and monocrops, the hand of man actually dominates the landscape, and the hand of God it isn't very pronounced. And so what we like to do is farm in a way where the integrity of the landscape remains intact, and our hand is simply a caress on what's there, not a you know, a complete adulteration of what's there. Okay, going to the next picture, we're moving cows here, and go from pigs to cows. And again, you know, we operate under a couple simple principles here, and one is that animals move. You know, we live in a culture where the feeling is, well, animals don't have to move. We confine them in factories, and you know, they don't have to move anywhere, and or feedlots or whatever. But if you look at animals in the wild, they move, and so if they move, they move for a lot of reasons. But they move onto fresh ground. They give the ground they've been on rest. Lots of reasons for the movement. So that migratory choreography that we still see, for example, in the Serengeti with the wildebeest in Africa, you know, we try to duplicate that on the domestic commercial scale with the cows by moving them every day using electric fence. If you're going to move them every day, well, what are you going to do then, you know, for shade and things? So next picture is our shade mobiles, and these are simply elongated wagon chassis that we use nursery shade cloth over top. We can hook several together, and we can get about 60 head under each one of these. We can hook 4 of them together and have enough for 240 head. and this is like a portable shade tree. We can move it out through the weeds or the thistles or rock patches or whatever, and we can dung and urine. In other words, we can precisely, with portable electric fence, we can precisely move the herd and put them exactly where we want them with the precision of a zero-turn mower with a steering wheel and an accelerator and a brake on that four-legged pruning sauerkraut vat, and then we can place their manure and urine on precise spots in the pasture that need that extra level of care. And of course, this makes the cows much more comfortable as well. Well, then we ask the question, well, how does nature sanitize behind these cows? Before Merck Pharmaceuticals and Pfizer and Johnson & Johnson came along, how did nature sanitize? And we turn to the next picture, and these are eggmobiles. So we look at nature, and we see birds are following herbivores in nature. And so these eggmobiles, there's 800 layers there. These are 12 by 20 feet, and each one of them has 400 layers in it. And they range out. There's no fencing. This is completely free range, and they range out as far as they want to go, which is generally no more than 200 yards, so a 200-yard radius circle. And they scratch through the cow patties and convert the fly larvae and the maggots into eggs, and scratch the dung into the soil to stimulate fertility. So you walk through the field, and there's no bright green spots or repugnancy zones where the cow pies have been.
Incredible.
So the eggmobiles move about 3 days behind the cow herd to do their pasture sanitation. Of course, the chickens also are picking up a lot of the grasshoppers and crickets that are now newly exposed by the cows having grazed off the tall grass.
Joel, if I can interrupt, Nancy Briggs is asking, how many acres do you have?
We own 650. 450 is woodland, or about 475, and then 175 is open land. That's what we own, and then we rent about another 1,000 acres. So we're actually managing about 1,800 acres, and about 1,200 acres is open land pasture.
Okay, and Grandpa's Place, if I can get my mouse up here, is asking I just lost it. With no fence, how many birds do you lose to predators?
Yes, that's a great question. And obviously with the eggmobile, the next picture shows fence. That's another model, which is what we call the Millennium Feather Net. And that is with the electric fence from Premier. And the predation, there's about a 10 to 15% difference in predation between the eggmobile and the Millennium Feather Net. So if I were just wanting to raise pastured eggs, I would not use the eggmobile. It is a more risky thing. The eggmobile works because it sanitizes the pasture for the cows, so we can absorb a larger loss due to the fact that we don't have to ever put the cows through the corral. We don't have to use Ivomec. We don't have to use any grubicides. The cows stay healthier. The manure gets spread. So a 1 square foot cow pat turns into 4 square feet worth of fertility. I mean, there's a whole slew of benefits to the eggmobile. I mean, I'm convinced that if the chickens never laid an egg, the eggmobile would still be worth it, just for what it does in sanitation for the cows. That whole bird herbivore symbiosis. So we do lose somewhere between 10 and 15% over a season in predator losses in the eggmobile. Most of those are aerial predators, and they're not land predators because they're nocturnal. The land predators are nocturnal, and the chickens go in at night, so we don't have an attack. We don't have a problem at night. They're pretty buttoned down at night. So the aerial predators. So we do run a couple of guard geese with them. The geese will chase off predators. We can also put a guard dog. A dog is extremely effective. You can pretty much eliminate all predation if you run a dog even if you chain it on a long run, and the dog will just learn to stay with the chickens, and you know, that's their duty.
What breed do you have, Joel? What breed dogs do you use for guard dogs?
We have a Marema, and we also have an Akbosh.
I've never heard of
but
that.
I think almost any of these nocturnal guard dogs would work. And
question, they want to know if you primarily raise Rhode Island Reds, or are they another breed?
Oh, we have Rhode Island Reds, so we don't use any hybrids. If we have a hybrid, it's an anomaly. So the hybrids, in other words, when I say hybrids, I mean the Cherry Eggers, DeKalb Golden Comets, the Leghorn crosses. So we use the Rhode Island Reds, Black Astrolorps, Barred Rocks, Buff Orpingtons, New Hampshire Reds, Silver-Laced Wyandottes. So there's a lot of different breeds, and what's really exciting is in the last 6 years, we have begun hatching our own chicks from our own old retained hens. And I can tell you that so we're several years into this, and those chicks, those pullets, are bulletproof compared to the ones from the hatchery. They're smarter, they're more docile, they train quicker. The fact is that if you're old and you're healthy and you're productive, we want your genetics. And over time, when you select the birds that have been running under the eggmobile when they see the hawk come, instead of going out and waving and saying, "Hi, feathered cousin, I'm your friend," those what we call survivor genetics, they beget survivor genetics, beget survivor genetics, beget survivor genetics, and before you know it, you've got an actual, much smarter, better adapted bird for your situation.
Joel, the electric fence netting that you use, is that solar powered or?
It can be. We don't use solar power. We do have a couple of solar packs, but I want to say this very very diplomatically and tenderly. We have a lot of interns here, and a solar panel will run you $300, but an Energizer, a battery, like a deep cycle battery, will run you $50. And when you see somebody head off down through the field with that four-wheeler and that $300 solar panel on the Energizer bounces off and cracks, it's a lot easier to replace a $50 deep cycle battery than a $300 solar panel.
Gotcha.
And so, if I were doing this, me myself, alone by myself, solar packs would be great. But we have to make things fairly idiot-proof here, because we are running a school as much as a farm.
Now, Joel, the picture that's up, it has the electric fence around the birds.
Yes.
Do you have
that's correct.
Do you just have one of those, or is there multiple? I mean, is this a model, or is this what you have? You mean?
Is that an actual picture? Is that what you're asking?
More than one fence, or more than one of these structures?
Yeah, more than one of these structures with the net. Do you have multiple ones?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, this spring we're building our third one.
Okay.
We're running about 5,000 layers right now, and this unit that you're looking at in the picture is a 1/4 acre unit. It's 3 50 meter nets. So it's 150 meters of perimeter, and that encloses a 1/4 acre, and we move those 1,000 birds every 3 days.
Wow.
And it works really slick. The shelter is on skids. See, the eggmobile is on wheels because it has to move. It goes down the public road. It goes all sorts of places. But the feather net, it's on skids, so it doesn't roll anywhere. You never have a flat tire. It's a real low profile. It'll take 100-mile-an-hour wind. It's really slick. The box-looking thing there in front of it, that's a feed trailer. That's a feed trailer that's hooked to it. So we hook up to the feed trailer with a tractor, set up an adjacent net, open that up like an hourglass, in the middle, and then we just back up, hook up to the trailer, and the whole thing pulls through, and the chickens just walk through into the next spot. The whole move, the whole move takes about, 10 minutes or so.
Joel, we have a question of Bee Lady Apiary asking if you use solar power for those electric fences out in the middle of nowhere, and if you do you have a video for it?
No, we don't use solar power. I just addressed that a little bit ago due to the fact that we use interns. The solar power is way too fragile for the heavy use of novices, and so we use deep cycle batteries. We have a whole bank of them, and we just have a bank of them in the shop, and we just rotate them through a shelf, first in, first out, and we've got 20 of those $50 deep cycle batteries, and we just rotate them through.
For your interns getting around the property and so forth, you mentioned four-wheelers. Is that your vehicle of choice that you use for maintenance around the farm? There is just a four-wheeler?
Yeah, we have. Yeah, I mean, we certainly encourage, these boots were made for walking. We certainly encourage that all we can. But, we're pretty spread out here. We've got a lot of things going on. I mean, remember, this is it's a $2.5 million operation, and so there's a lot of things going on, and we have to be pretty efficient. And so, for example, when you've got an egg mobile half a mile away from home, and you're gathering, 40 dozen eggs out of there, or 50 dozen, you can't just walk out there half a mile and carry 50 dozen eggs home. It's just
really,
it's just logistically too difficult. So a four-wheeler works really well. And I'm a big believer. I mean, I'm not married to four-wheelers. I mean, I know people that just go down and get like a $500 high mileage, rusty old, like a, Geo or a Subaru Forester or, some kind of a little, utility vehicle. And you get something that's not roadworthy anymore, that's maybe a rust bucket, but the engine still runs, and you can sometimes pick these up. I know people that pick them up for $500 to $800. I know a guy that ran a minivan. He got a Dodge Caravan, ripped all the seats out of it, took the doors off. That was his farm vehicle of choice. Cost him $700. He ran it for 3 years. And then the engine fell out of it, but $700 for 3 years, that's a lot cheaper than a $4,000 four-wheeler, which, these four-wheelers are pretty sophisticated machines. They'll run, 40, 50 miles an hour, and you're going to spend $2,000 a year on maintenance, if you run them at all. And so we put a lot of hours and a lot of running on hours.
Okay, Joel, we've got some more questions if we can kind of get those got up out of the way here.
Okay. I have Nancy Briggs is asking, are you only pasture land, or do you grow other crops, and do you do a rotation of your crops?
We are all in pasture now, and so we buy GMO-free grains from neighbors. Now, that being said, we have now twice done the Colin Seiss, the Australian farmer Colin Seiss idea of pasture cropping, and we've not done any small grain with that yet, but we have done corn, cowpeas, sudex, millet, and the way this works, this is brand new, and you will be seeing more and more of this. If you get Stockman Grass Farmer magazine, you will see more and more of this sort of thing happening. What Colin Seiss has done in Australia, he's got a couple thousand farmers doing this in Australia now, where they've integrated holistic management with livestock, with no-till cropping. And so these are grain farmers who have gone back to permanent grass pasture, permanent sod, but they use animals, they use herbivores to temporarily weaken the sod for a window of opportunity to get an annual up ahead of it. So we've done this twice, and it's just fantastic. What you do is we go in with a herd of cows and we graze down a field. Would be in like early May, all right? Graze down a field, and then we come in 10, 14 days later with a sod seeder and seed in, Sudex, sorghum, cowpeas, corn, all right? Or sow that in, and then the day before it germinates, we come back in through with the animals. Now, the grass hasn't grown back a whole lot, so the animals aren't real happy for that day. But the grass, because it's short, and they come in and mow it again hard, it actually weakens the grass. It's a temporary weakening. It weakens the grass. The next day, the annual pops through the ground, and of course, it's jumping for the light, and it outpaces the grass because it's an annual. It's going to grow faster, and it's going to get up there 7, 8 inches above the grass, and then it's going to start shading the grass. And the grass just kind of sits there in the understory, slowly kind of retarded in the understory, while this other crop grows up, 3 feet, 8 feet, takes off. And then when you take that crop off, whether you graze it off or whether you combine it off or whatever you do, when you take that crop off, then the grass is already there, and it just grows right along, and you've never used an herbicide, you've never used chemical fertilizer, and you've been able to get an annual without destroying the crop, and you've used your herbivore as a strategic herbicide on that perennial sod to create a window of opportunity for your annual to come through. It's extremely exciting. I think this technique is going to go down as probably the biggest thing since electric fence.
Wow.
Now Jason from Big Bear Homestead is asking, how many of the batteries do you use at one time with this large of a setup?
Well, you got to realize we've got 1,000 head of cattle, might be in four groups. We've got maybe 6 groups of 50 pigs. We've got a herd of lambs. We've got a flock of ducks. We've got 3 millennium feather nets, a couple flocks of sheep. So in the whole operation, we might turkeys. We might have 4 groups of turkeys running, and they run with the netting as well. So at the peak of operation, we might be running 20 different energizers with 20 different batteries on 4 or 5 different properties.
Wow. Now, another question: what could you use the hilly pieces of land for? Do you use all your land? If there's hills or that, do you use those also for your animals?
It's not enough in that question to know how to answer it. Look, our rule of thumb is if you don't feel comfortable driving on it, it needs to be in probably forest or something, where you can't tend it as pasture if it's so steep you don't feel comfortable driving on it. Why?
Yeah.
Because if it's pasture, you got to be able to mow it occasionally, spread some compost on it occasionally. You got to be able to get on it to really handle pasture well, and in my opinion. And so that kind of becomes a benchmark for use. Now, what do we use it for if it's not in pasture? Well, you could use it for vineyard or orchard or a forest. That's our favorite, but you can use it for sugar maple. There's a million. You could terrace it and use it for Peruvian potatoes. but generally speaking, if you don't feel comfortable driving on it, then we would not put it in. We would not have it in pasture. We would do something else with it.
Okay, Joel, let's take just a couple minute break here. We'll get one of the trivia questions out of the way, and we'll just kind of go with that, if that's okay.
Okay, that's great.
All right. Okay. Okay, folks, here's how this works. And for those of you new in the channel, it's great to see everybody here. But we do the trivia thing every week, every Monday night. And our rules are very simple, as you see on the screen. You can only win once every 4 weeks. You must be the first person to answer the question correctly in the chat window as it is received and recorded on the stream here at Two Family Homestead. And if you look at the screen right now, you'll see that chat is embedded, going right at the center of the screen. So that's how we determine the person that answers it first. And if you win, obviously, you need to send us an email with your mailing address. We ask that you do that within 48 hours to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com, and we will send you in the mail a $2 bill. And we have sent them all over the world. So, for our first question, name 3 types of tours at Polyface Farms. There's 3 different types of tours at Polyface Farms. Boy, maybe we stumped everybody.
Linda, no, you can't. Land management, animal husbandry, and farming.
No. 3 different types of tours.
Chicken, cow, and pig.
No.
Yeah, Noah. Farm tours.
Well, that's one of them, Bonterra. That's one of the types of tours. Self-guided, grass stain and lunatic Southern Arc Homestead is a winner.
Hey.
Just beat out Thunder Ridge Homestead. Folks, if you want to read more about these tours, it is on the polyfacefarm.com website. And very, very interesting website. You could spend a couple hours going through the stuff there.
Southern Arc.
Can't win?
Didn't you win on 2 weeks ago, Simply Rugged Path?
If that's the case,
or did I?
Thunder Ridge Homestead is next.
I think you won the $2. Yeah.
Thunder Ridge Homestead, then. Thunder Ridge Homestead, you are the winner.
If I have that right down, Nina, tell me if I'm wrong. You and Grandpa's place won that night. The $2.
Okay, Thunder Ridge Homestead, you are the winner. Please send us an email to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com, and we'll get you a $2 bill out in the mail. And I see we have Off Grid with Doug and Stacy in the show here. Snatched from victory, he says.
Yeah. And she said she forgot. That's okay. Hey, $2. Got to go out and get that.
Okay, are we caught up with the questions?
Well, I was staying on some of them so I wouldn't lose them. Let me see. I thought there was.
Somebody asked what he feels is the the best thing he's done on the farm or something like that?
I'd say I haven't. We have one, Joel, have you ever tried grazing corn or other crop as forage?
Yes, that's what we used the pasture cropping for. So when we did the pasture cropping, we did not combine it for seed. We did not grow the corn to grow ear corn, although it made ears. We grew it to fill that valley of forage deficiency during early August, when in our hot dry time. We're in Virginia Shenandoah Valley here, so we typically head into a hot drought there in 1st of July to the 1st of September. And so these annuals that you plant in May, they grow inverted. If you chart forage growth cycle, your cool season grasses, they tend to grow in May, then they slough off in July and August, and then they pick up again in September and October. And so to fill that valley, you want something that's inverted. Well, things like Sudex and sorghum and corn and stuff and peas and cowpeas, those grow inverted to that cycle. So, they start in late May and max out in, late July or in July and August. So we actually grazed that crop, and it was amazing. We had 100 head of cattle on less than a quarter of an acre a day. It was pretty dramatic, and it was the stuff was like 6 and 7 feet, some 8 feet tall, and even though we had 100 head of cattle on a less than a quarter acre, when we moved them in first, we moved them every day to another paddock, and when we moved them in first, you couldn't even see them in there. They just got swallowed up in the tall forage. It was pretty, and then by tomorrow, by the next day, they ate half of it, tromped half of it, and a mouse would have to carry a knapsack to go across it to get lunch. Pretty dramatic.
We have Green Gables Homestead said their family has 100 acres in a family trust in Texas. Her brother is trying to keep cattle and hay running on it while working full-time hours away. They gave him You Can Farm for Christmas. What book should they give him next?
The next would be the sequel to that, which is Your Successful Farm Business. Your Successful Farm Business. And that's the sequel to You Can Farm. Basically, Your Successful Farm Business refines and takes all the things that we've learned in the 20 years since You Can Farm. You Can Farm is still very current. Don't want to go to get any things that it's outdated. But this is just all the new refinements in thinking from a business standpoint since You Can Farm was written. It's a really good book.
Someone asked if you will be expanding your acreage.
I have no idea. We don't even have a business plan. So we just kind of devote ourselves to being faithful with what we've got, and if we get more customers and get more land, I think. Look, what floats our boat more than anything else in the world is watching the land heal. I mean, that's what, man. If you want to see me get excited, come out with me and I'll show you some earthworms and show you, where it used to be rocks and now it's soil on top. And I mean, that's pretty cool. So we know when we can touch land, it heals. And so that's our number one thing. So essentially we're not out here grasping, but if something comes up, then if somebody asks us, would you come and take our place? If it fits for us, we don't take. We've turned down places for sure because they don't fit. They're too far away. They're too encumbered with who knows easements or issues, prohibitions. If you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't do the other. There are all sorts of things, but if it's a fit, then we do our best to try to accommodate and take that property, which means then that we have to figure out how to market what it produces. And so there's always this tension between, market shoving land and land shoving marketing, and it's never in equilibrium. It's always some sort of a off kilter, but well, that's the way life is.
And Goldilocks Bear is asking, what is your greatest accomplishment on your farm?
Probably the greatest accomplishment is that now I'm the most expendable person on the place. So I can leave and there's not a bobble. So we're really grateful that our son took such an interest in it, and he runs day-to-day operations very well. And so if anybody else leaves, it creates a little bit of a bobble in the operation. But if I leave, it doesn't create a bobble. So that's pretty cool.
And Joel, somebody, I forget the name, but somebody asked, what breed of cattle do you have on your farm?
Yeah, they're called Heinz 57.
Okay, fair.
And so we've been line breeding, and we don't. And I can say this for the chickens, the pigs, the cows, everything. We don't get hung up on breeds. We think that there's more difference from breed to breed than there is within breed. So there's take Red Angus. There's Red Angus that are good, Red Angus that are bad. There are Charolais that are good, Charolais that are bad. Angus that are good, Angus that are bad. And so it in is phenotype and adaptability. And so when you pull the hide off, you can't tell what color that hide was when you started. And there are all sorts of people that are hung up on breeds, and it actually stifles you from being able to make genetic progress quicker, or be able to jump on an opportunity that maybe somebody else has some good cattle, but you can't get them because they're not the right breed, they're not the right color, whatever. And so what we're keen on is phenotype. What we want is a little barrel on toothpicks, and kind of what we call state-of-the-art 1950s genetics. That's what we're looking for in pigs. And so we want a phenotype that works with the pasture, with the kind of system that we have, and there are phenotypes in every single breed that will work for you, and there are phenotypes in every single breed that will not work for you. So the key is to look for the phenotype rather than color and breed.
Okay, and Joel, we've got a question here from a guy off grid with Doug and Stacy, and he's asking, is there any new pressures from local government about your property or operation?
Pressure from government. Well, there's always pressure from government. And there are some battles you want to fight and some battles you don't want to fight. And so, right now, probably one of the biggest pressures we're facing is that we're bumping the top of this Public Law 90-492 exemption for poultry of 20,000 birds a year. And I'm actually talking with a couple of people around, Edwin Shank up in Pennsylvania with the Happy Cow, the Furmans down here in Virginia. There are several of us that are looking at maybe putting together some sort of a conference where we would, we've got fast food, and then we had slow food, and perhaps now it's time to have rogue food, and or maybe we'll call it rebel food or so, I don't know what. But anyway, there are now some extremely interesting and fascinating private buying club templates. Of course, there's the milk herd share thing, but there are some really interesting things, pet food, different techniques and things, kind of guerrilla marketing things that people are doing under the radar, because as soon as you go into the food inspection system, you lose control, and you go into an industrial orthodoxy that is not very friendly to either small scale or artisanal craft product. and adulterate what it is. I mean, one of the reasons we don't want to get our chickens federal inspected is because we'd have to dredge them in, parasitic acid or chlorine or something, and if we got it federal inspected, it would adulterate our product. And so same thing with organic certification and different things. You get to the end of it, and to get organic certified, you got to go to hot thermophilic compost. But we don't want a hot thermophilic compost. We want a gentle, cool compost to preserve all the biology and the enzymes. So most of these kind of licensing and certification things, from government to private to whatever, get squirrely out there on the edges. And so there's a growing desire among many of us to figure out a way to engage in food commerce that does not come under the authority of the government at all. And there are some really ingenious things in terms of agreement and contracts and clubs and things, techniques that are being developed. And I just think the time is ripe to move forward, to give a wider audience and wider use of this, so that we can, prove the efficacy and the credibility of some of these completely, autonomous systems to literally preserve the integrity of the local craft food movement.
We have a question here. Bee Lady Apiary is asking if you're ever going to get into beekeeping.
So we have 28 beehives here on the farm.
There you go, Elizabeth.
So yeah, we have quite a few hives of bees, and I don't do them. My brother, actually, that's one of his enterprises. He's an airplane mechanic. He likes anything that flies, so he's got bees. And he has an airplane mechanic shop here about 14 miles away. So he's a weekend bee hobbyist, and he's trying to see what can an old geezer do on the weekends, And I think last year he took off 800 pounds of honey, which is $8,000. So it was a nice little weekend bonus for him, and we definitely like our bees.
Do you have any?
No, I'm done.
Okay. I think I can maybe just answer this one for you real quick, Joel. Browncoat Homestead, I think it was, asked about can anybody become an intern? And I know you have applications on your website to become an intern, yes. And all the rules and everything is on the polyfacefarms.com website.
Yeah, that's correct.
Off Grid with Doug and Stacy made a comment here. Joel, we think alike on so many levels. Now, if I could just get that vocabulary down. So I just thought I'd share that with you.
Well, just read more.
and the white picket fence says, I love the idea of going rogue and using the word rebel. So. Oh, good. Okay. All right. I don't. Rogue has some real bad. Some people don't like that because it sounds. It's kind of like me using the word lunatic farmer. A lot of people they for me it's fun. It's the Sure.
lunatic fringe, right? It's fun. And I think rogue has a bit of that. Rogue One to Rogue Two. It's kind of that cool little. There's a certain, I don't know, mischievous allure, right, to the word rogue, and basically, in other words, we're saying, we don't cotton to a bureaucrat getting involved in between two voluntarily informed consenting adults in our decision to get raw milk or get homemade charcuterie or cottage-made kefir. It's none of the government's business. Just let us, as neighbor to neighbor, transact stuff in full transparency, and that's what we're talking about. And so it's a completely, we're not saying abolish the government system. If you want to play that game, play that game. That's fine. If you want a bureaucrat stamp on all of your transactions, fine, have at it. It's okay. but there ought to be a place for unimpeded transactions and both dialogue and commercial dialogue and verbal dialogue to occur in neighbor to neighbor without the government punching their nose in it.
Okay, Joel, I absolutely love what's going on. The problem is we're still stuck on this picture with the netting around the birds, and I know that you have some more here. So, folks, I'm going to ask you to kind of hold your questions for a little bit here. We'll let Joel go on with this presentation. Then we'll do the last trivia question, and maybe ask a few more questions.
Somebody, before you do that, somebody wants to know where your interns live while they're there. I was going to give.
They live here on the farm.
I was going to give a smart ass question. Get my mouth shut.
They live on a farm. So, Joel, I've got. I don't remember the number.
Yeah. So the next picture, number number 9, I think, is going to be broiler shelters.
Yep.
Or maybe number 10, broiler shelters. You see them there, these 10 by 12 by 2 feet high modular broiler shelters. And then the next picture, 10, is moving those broiler shelters with a little dolly. And I want to just say one thing right here, because there's a lot of chatter out there about that these little individual shelters are inefficient. We need to go to these big 500 bird movable hoop structures and all that stuff. And we actually bought one of those a couple of years ago. We've been keeping records on it, and the truth is that these little units, the big deal is, you can move 500 chickens in 10 minutes. Well, we move 450 chickens in 10 minutes, and we don't have to start an engine or run a machine or anything. It's all just footsteps and move them. And these things, our capital cost per bird is a fifth of what those big things are. So these are way cheaper capital cost per bird little modules. I mean, those things are $6,000-$7,000. These things are $300 and you're in business. So there's a lot to be said for the little modular things, and we can move 5,000. One person can move 5,000 birds in 60 minutes. That's our benchmark, is moving 75 birds every 60 seconds by hand, no machinery, no tracks in the field, no heavy equipment, no capital costs for a machine. I mean, in our system, you don't even have to have a pickup truck. You don't even have to have a tractor. You don't have to have anything. Except this little dolly in your own muscles. So it's pretty cool, and you can place these anywhere, land you own, land you don't own. So it gets you out of the land ownership conundrum. You want to start farming? Well, you can just place this on an existing dairy, beef cattle, orchard, wheat farm, whatever, and you're up and running with no land cost. Next picture. Picture 11 is turkeys. There's 2 pictures there of turkeys. One is the turkeys in the field. The second one, of course, is a little closer up, a picture of the gobbledygook. This is another portable structure with a nursery shade cloth over the top and a feed buggy in front. Using the electric netting, we run groups of about 400 turkeys in a group. Last year, I think we raised about 2,000 turkeys. And of course, they're running. The thing to appreciate is that these are running at a different time, but on the same land as the broilers, the egg mobiles, the cows. So the permaculture idea of stacking, where we're stacking the enterprises, you got the cows, the egg mobiles, which are eggs, the broilers, which are meat chickens, the turkeys, of course, which are turkey. You add all those things up, and you start talking about $10,000 per acre in income. And suddenly you can afford to buy land, or you can actually make a living on a very small farm. With this kind of model, you're talking about an income rate of $250,000 on 25 acres. That's a pretty decent idea. And of course, the beauty is that you're making that land get better and better all the time. Picture 12 is into the wintertime in the hoop structures. Here you have pigs on the floor, chickens up above. Of course, those chickens, that mezzanine floor there those are just 4x8 tables that we make out of the lumber that we have. We have a bandsaw mill, so we can cut our own trees into lumber real cheaply. And these are just 4x8 tables that we can set up so you can make a mezzanine floor, and you can get the vertical space of the hoop structure rather than just the floor space. Picture 13 there, the bottom one, is the racking house. That's rabbits up above. You see the rabbits around the edges, chickens on the floor. Again, the stacking idea of permaculture, stacking enterprises, and of course the chickens scratch through what the rabbits drop and create wonderful composting bedding, deep bedding. Again, this bedding gets 2.5 feet deep as well. You just keep adding carbon. The chickens stir it up, and it's just that racking house rabbit chicken. That's what we call it, the racking house rabbit chicken. That's some of the best compost we make on the place because it's chicken plus rabbits. And then in the wintertime, the rabbits go into the hoop house, into the tall tunnels. Chickens go into tall tunnels, and pigs go in the racking house. So it has rabbits and chickens in the summer, in the spring, summer, fall. In the winter, 100 days, it has pigs in it. And then we clean it all out, spread that, put in fresh carbon, and start the cycle back over. So the fact that it has different kinds of animals in it through the year creates pathogen dead ends for pathogens. Next picture, number 14 there, the picture is the garden in the hoop house. So this is the same hoop house. You see the rabbit cages up on the left. This is where the chickens and the rabbits were in the wintertime, and in the summer, this becomes vegetable production. The chickens have debugged it, and have all the compost is great to plant into, and so about the time you get bugs in the plants, then the chickens come in to eat them. And about the time you get bugs in the chickens go out and plants come in. There aren't any chickens anymore. So again, this is that whole keep the pathogens and the toxins and the bugs. Keep them guessing. Guessing bugs are timid bugs, and timid bugs are a good thing. At least the bad ones, not the good ones. Final pictures is just the people component of the farm. One of the joys here is at my age now to be able to be surrounded by this youthfulness on the place, and we now it takes as much effort and energy to maintain the relationships and do the mentoring and duplicate the enthusiasm as it did to develop the prototypes in the beginning. But it's an extremely rewarding work, and it's just wonderful to rebuild this agrarian relational culture on the farm. So in the evening, when the interns are here, May 1 to September 30, we all eat together evening meals. We have a farm chef, and there's 25 of us who live on the farm during the summertime and eat together the Monday through Friday meals with an on-farm chef. And it's very familial, it's very communal, and it's just, I can't tell you the value of that as now an older farmer, to be able to age with that kind of support structure and encouragement and youthful enthusiasm in my face every day. It's a very exciting and rewarding way to age.
Simply incredible, Joe. It's just an unbelievable. You sit here and listen all night to you.
Thank you. Well, we don't have it all figured out, but we've been blessed with a few answers, and we're thrilled to share.
Okay. Well, I asked everybody to hold off on their questions, so let us do this second trivia here real quick, because they should get this one down pretty quick here, and then maybe a couple more questions, and at that point, it's up to you, sir. If you want to stick around and continue to answer questions, we can do that. So let me get the trivia up here. Okay, I'll go over the rules one more time with you folks. You can only win once every 4 weeks. You must be the first person to answer the question correctly in the chat window as it is received and recorded on the stream here. And that stream is embedded in the center of the screen at this point. You must send us an email with your mailing address. We ask you do that within 48 hours if you are the first person to answer the question correctly. So question number 2, if everybody's ready. How many different apprenticeship options does Polyface Farms offer? How many different? S. Woods, that's incorrect. Shell's Home Place, incorrect. Brown Coat, incorrect. Terry Trotto, incorrect. Mud Pie Girl, incorrect. A. Rob 1172. A. Rob 117 is the first one to come through, followed very closely by Wholesome Roots. So A. Rob 117. A. Rob 117. If you would, send us an email to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com. And we want to thank you for playing. Let me swipe this over. Okay, Joel. This has simply been incredible, just wonderful. If anybody else has some questions here, or did you gather a couple up during the last bunch of pictures? Was there any that...
No.
Okay.
No. If he wants to stay a little bit, open up the phone lines.
Oh, that's right. We could do that.
I'm sure there's quite a few. I know of at
Joel,
least
would you mind if
that
we open up the phone?
would love to call.
No,
in.
I'm happy. I'm happy to go another whatever. I mean, I don't know how long you normally go, but I'm good to go another 20, 30 minutes.
Wholesome Roots is asking you a question. Why is the order different in the chat? I'm sure she's talking about the $2 the trivia question, because on her screen it may look like she answered first.
Okay.
So I'm gonna let you explain that.
Okay. The thing about answering the trivia question, we have to have a defined way to determine a winner, and the best way we can do that is how it is received here at our computer. Because of the nature of the chat windows, Rose, your computer could be in a different order than mine, in a different order than somebody across the street. Some of the computing thing in YouTube for the chat window is actually done locally on your screen, so frequently your responses show up quicker there than they do at any place else. So that's the reason we have it done that way, just to make it fair.
Alderman said it looks the same on theirs as ours, so let's go ahead and open up the phone. Well, you have the phone number up there.
I'm getting it over there right now. Okay, folks, the phone line is open. The number is on the screen.
We do have a question. What temp does the Racking House stay at?
What temperature?
Yes.
For the Racking House? Well, the Racking House is a translucent. It's not a. It doesn't collect solar gain. It's a white Winkler canvas structure. You know, it's a canvas, white canvas, as opposed to a more transparent plastic for solar gain. So the Racking House stays pretty much at ambient temperature in the summer. In the summer, of course, with the shade, it's cooler than ambient. In the winter, it's basically the same as ambient. So in the winter, the pigs are in there, and as long as the pigs aren't wet or in draft, what kills an animal is wet and draft, the combination of wet and draft. So if you can keep an animal dry and out of the draft, out of wind, they can take almost any cold. They just snuggle down in there and stay as warm as can be. You'll see steam rising up around. So the pigs are in there in wintertime. So the racking house is pretty much an ambient, although it is cooler in the summer due to the shading of the cloth.
Okay, and this is Daryl. Who's calling, please?
This is me, Daryl. Jason.
Jason.
I had a feeling he'd be the first.
Well, Joel, I think you know this party that we have on the phone here. Some guy that goes by Big Bear. I think you two were on stage together here at the Homesteaders of America conference last year. So,
the Trapper.
Right.
The Trapper, yes, right.
Yes, sir.
How you doing, Joel? My question is with your paddocks that you're running with the eggmobiles. You said you're using those deep cell batteries. Now your paddocks are rather large. Are you using one battery per paddock, or do you have to double up on the battery?
No, just one battery.
Just one battery.
One battery. The key there. So it's a deep cycle battery. It's, a marine battery, the kind of battery that people put in outboard motor boats and things like that. It's made. They have about 30% more weight and capacity in them, so they can take drawdown. Unlike a car battery, a regular car battery doesn't like much drawdown, but the marine battery is made so that it can take multiple drawdowns and still hold. So that's why we use the marine batteries. The key there is a heavy enough energizer and a good enough ground rod. So by having each of these as independent units, we're not energizing 6 of them off of a single grid system. It's all portable and all autonomous. Every one is autonomous. Yes, there are more energizers, but your chances of having a short and a problem, at least it's localized to that single thing, as opposed to something a mile away, shorting out everything in the whole outfit, and then you've got 3 different groups of animals out and all sorts of issues. So we've just found that in general, it's better to put a little more money in more autonomous single units than it is trying to run one centralized grid that drives the whole operation. But still, the key to these nets is, and this is where I disagree a little bit with Premier. Premier says you need at least I think it's a 0.5 joule or something like that energizer. I think it's too low. We don't run anything less than a 1 joule energizer on those nets. We think it takes a little more power than that.
And with the distance of your netting, do you have to change the batteries midday, or is it just changing them every day?
We change the batteries about every 2 weeks.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, it'll go. The battery will go a month, but we just don't like to draw them all the way down.
All right. Well, thank you. And I will be reaching out to you soon.
Have you had any more developments on your? We made one of your Pepsi can scarecrow automobile deals.
Yeah, is it working for you?
We don't know. We don't know yet. We got so scared. We took the dog over there. We had an eagle sitting on top of the eggmobile, and so we took the dog over. We haven't had an attack since, but I don't think the scarecrow is done yet because we didn't have enough. We don't use very many cans around here, so we didn't have enough cans to cover the whole traffic cone with cans. But
well, I was getting ready to reach out to you, send you an email. After talking with you, I've completely revamped it. I got a completely different design, and I'd like to bring that up and
good.
Test it on
I'm
your
ready.
place like
I'm ready
you
to use it because we're going out. We got stuff going out, and if we've got a way to eliminate these aerial predators, I think I smell a business.
Awesome. I will be in touch then. Thank you for answering my question.
Jason.
Jason, thanks for your call. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks, bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, folks, the phone line is open. I can only take one call at a time. I don't have call waiting type thing. So if right now there is nobody on the line, and if you do call in, we ask that you turn the volume down on your YouTube. There's a large delay simply from the way this works, and it gets people confused, and of course sets up echoing and this, that, and the other thing. So, but feel free to call. Number is on the screen. And in the interim here, just looking back, did you see any other questions come through? Nope.
White Pit Defense, are the batteries rechargeable?
Oh yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
So these are marine deep cycle batteries. You get them down at your automotive store in the marine battery section, and they have different sizes, big ones and little ones. We normally don't get the great big ones. They're just too. They weigh about 50 pounds. It's too heavy to carry. So we get kind of the middle of the road one, and so we have just a regular battery charger, again from the automotive store in the shop, and we have a shelf for batteries to be charged and a shelf for batteries that are charged, and they just go on here on an assembly train, and we just keep that little trickle charger. I mean, it probably takes $20 worth of electricity a year. I mean, it's nothing. It just trickles, and you just trickle charge that in, and we just keep them rotating all the time. We have a jug of distilled water there. You always check every little often you check the battery, and we have a rotation. Whoever's in charge of a certain thing, you just rotate it out every 2 weeks. It'll go a month again, but they last longer if you don't draw them all the way down. And we just kind of have a 2-week cycle, and you just cycle them through, and occasionally they do wear out in 4, 5, 6 years sometimes, and so we just take it in and trade it out for a new one, and they're not very expensive, and they're fairly bulletproof.
Okay, and Joel, Brad Talby has asked, in what order do you rotate the livestock through the pasture?
What order?
Yes.
Oh, well, there are certain givens. I mean, so the broiler shelters. Let's start there. Those little 10 by 12 by 2 foot shelters. Those are a given. That they're in a given field. I mean, we don't cover the whole farm with those, but they're in a certain field at a time, and so they move every day. If the grass gets too long for those chickens, the broilers are the most sophisticated, fragile, highly sophisticated, and high profit, high income thing that we do per acre, and so they have to be right. I mean, everything else can be go to pot. Well, not literally, but anyway, legal pot. Everything else can go askew, but the broilers have to be right. And so if the grass gets too tall, the chickens like short grass. They stay cleaner in short grass because their manure doesn't go on the grass and slide up their feathers, their plumage. So they like short grass. They also eat more if it's short grass because they can't masticate a long blade of grass. Turkeys can take it longer. Chickens like it a lot shorter. So when the grass gets long, over 7 or 8 inches for the broilers, then we bring the cows in ahead of them to graze it down to keep that grass short for the broilers. And so, we do that. It's not like we have cows in front of them all the time. We just bring cows in like a mowing machine if we need to bring that grass down to make it conducive to chickens. Also, the short grass discourages ground predators because a skunk or a raccoon or something going across short grass, a great horned owl will come down and pick that skunk right up off the ground. So they feel vulnerable, and so the short grass around helps to keep predators down. So that's the broilers. So they're a given thing. The cows come into them as necessary. Otherwise, the cows are out on their rotation. Okay, the eggmobile always follows the cows. So wherever the cows are, the eggmobile is 3 days behind them, and that's so the eggmobile simply follows the cows wherever they are. The turkeys can be, kind of anywhere. Obviously, we don't want to just run the turkeys right behind the broilers or anything like that. We want grass that's pretty decent. So the turkeys might run in the same field with the broilers on a different section. They might run in a different field altogether. Or we might have run a bunch of the Millennium Feathernet through there in the spring, and now we're running turkeys there in the fall. It's an extremely fluid, flexible thing with some givens, like the eggmobile follows the cows. So we don't have to think about where the eggmobile is going to be. The broilers are where they are, so we don't have to think about where they're going to be. The turkeys can't be right with the broilers. They can be near, but they're going to be somewhere else. And the Millennium Feathernet, we usually pick a field and run the Millennium Feathernet through there. Again, the cows come in there as necessary. One of the things that we're looking about as our grandson's sheep flock grows, he's growing sheep. He's up to about 14 ewes now. So it's a small flock, but he's only 12. So 14 ewes, so pretty nice. This is coming up his 4th year with his sheep, and as they expand, one of the things that we're thinking about is, and we did this a little bit last year, and it worked quite well actually. When we set up the feathernet for the Millennium Feathernet, we ran the sheep like a leader follower. We ran the sheep ahead of the Millennium Feathernet, so the sheep grazed it down. So when the chickens came, the grass was short. But the beauty of this was that it allowed us to get 2 enterprises through one netting setup. So we set the netting up for the sheep and the chickens. The sheep are in it the first 3 days. The chickens are in it the next 3 days. And even though in all we need now 3 circles instead of 2, so does need a little bit more infrastructure, even though it takes a little more infrastructure because you have to have the circle you're going to move them into, and the circle you moved, then the circle you vacated. So if you're going to run the sheep for 3 days and the chickens for 3 days, you need 3 circles: 1 for the sheep, 1 for the net, 1 for the Millennium Feathernet, and a circle that's empty for them to move into. All right. So it takes a 3rd net to move into, but the point is that if you can set this up once and get 2 enterprises through it instead of 1, it creates great efficiencies of workload to be able to do that. And that I think is going to be something that we pursue more in the future as we double up, multi-use on the actual setup.
Okay, and Rock's Corner is asking if you use diatomaceous earth for your chickens.
We do not use diatomaceous earth for the chickens. The only thing that gets diatomaceous earth are the pigs. The pigs get some in their feed as a parasiticide. Yes.
And Sherry from 70 Farm is asking, what's the best turkey for a small homestead?
Best turkey for a small homestead? One that's alive.
Oh, there you go, Sherry.
Again, as I said before, I'm not stuck on breeds. We raise white, industrial double-breasted turkeys. But it's important to understand one of the beauties of the big double-breasted turkey or bronze double-breasted turkey, either one. One of the beauties of those turkeys is that you can control them easy. A lot of these real rare breed turkeys fly, and they'll just fly up in the trees, take off. You can't control them, and when you can't control them, then they're going to build up their manure in a certain roost spot and all that sort of thing. So the more commercial genetic gives you a turkey that's too heavy to fly, and therefore it's easily controlled, and when you can control it, you can control its pathogens, you can control the parasites, you you can turn it into an asset instead of a kind of a haphazard liability running around the place. And so, you know, we've done some taste tests with, you know, these white double-breasted turkeys compared to heritage breed turkeys, and we win every time. Why? Because we can get our turkeys on fresh ground all the time. A lot of times these heritage turkeys are so hard to control, they just turn into a dirt bath. I mean, the guy in where is he, Kansas, that's the darling of the slow food movement and the ARC and all this is heritage turkey. He finally gave up and went into factory barns because he couldn't control his turkeys. And so now you got heritage turkeys in a factory barn. People are paying $150, $200 for these heritage turkeys grown in a factory barn. Our turkeys are getting 40% grass. The fat is yellow. They're getting all this exercise, fresh air, sunshine, no fecal particulate ingestion. I'll put one of these up against those heritage birds any kind of day. The point is that it's easier to control the heavier bird than it is the bird that flies. And I'm not trying to say you should never grow a heritage bird. I'm just trying to say that it's not just a simple deal, and people get all gaga and enamored over a breed, over heritage this or heritage that, and it's a lot more complicated than that, a lot more nuanced. That said, I'll just mention one more thing. Our goal here at Polyface is to offer a credible alternative to the entire factory farming system. And I'm glad that people do the heritage turkeys. That's great. That's fine.
Okay,
but
Joel. We have another call.
You're not going to move people from a Tyson Walmart turkey to a heritage turkey overnight. That is a huge stretch, a bridge, and so we want to offer an affordable turkey that every man can purchase off of pasture with GMO-free feed that is a credible alternative to the factory farm. The kind of turkey that we offer is an actual credible substitute for the factory farm turkey. Once we eliminate factory farming, then we can talk about the nuances of heritage breeds and all that sort of thing. That's kind of where. So we are very open that our goal is not, the perfect turkey. Our goal is to offer an ecological, nutrient-dense, credible alternative to the factory turkey. And once we accomplish that, then we can take further steps.
Okay, Joel, we have another phone call here. This is Daryl. Who's calling, please?
It's Brown Coat Homestead.
Well, hello. How are you doing this evening?
Doing great. I've been enjoying the interview and all the information immensely. Thank you, Joel.
Thank you.
Do you have a question for Joel?
Well, I just wanted to call and say thank you for all the information, and it's been just that, and I am looking forward to hopefully money working out well, seeing you at the Homestead of America's event this year.
Yes, good. Well, we look forward to having you. It's going to be in a new place, but I think it's going to be a great venue, and the whole crew there is doing a great job of enhancing that. I think it's going to be. I think it's just going to be fantastic.
Yes, Amy was in the room earlier. I don't see her now, but she was in the room earlier. So.
Yeah, she did real good. They all did real good planning that last year.
Yes,
it's going to be
absolutely
that much better this year.
Certainly.
Okay, Stephen, anything else?
Well, thanks, and you all have a great night, and it's, as usual, a pleasure and a fountain of information.
Thank you, Stephen. You have a good night.
Super.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You too.
Bye-bye.
We did have a question. Go back, see if I can find it. Papa Truck Prepstetter's asking, do you run the cattle in the woods or pasture only?
We don't run cattle in the woods. And, of course, we're in the Appalachian hardwood areas. Now, if I were in Alabama in the piney woods, you know, I probably would. But we, I'm not sure how to. Now, that's not to say that we don't have silvopasture. Okay, so we've got, especially on some of the rental land, we've got places where there are very widely spaced trees, kind of a park-like deal. And that makes a beautiful pasture. But as far as running the cows in the woods, we don't do that. The woods don't really have high quality forage, and the leaves are not nearly as good. Now that's not to say that field edges. We have real hedgerowy type field edges, lots of trees along the edges. And so there is, some tree pruning along the edges, but generally we like to kind of keep the woods, and the open fields, although we do have some with widely spaced trees, and they're absolutely beautiful. Those tend to be fields that we've made into the woods. They're kind of conversion type things, and so they've got stumps and things like that. We don't do conversion with a bulldozer, so we can't mow those. Since we can't mow them, then it's fine to have these very widely spaced trees. But as far as turning the cows into the woods themselves, where there's no grass and it's just woods, no, we don't run the cows in there.
Someone wants to know if Duncan 1900 wants to know if you raise goats.
No, we have had goats. We do not have goats. Notice one is past tense, one is present tense. We've decided we don't like to raise something that's smarter than we are. Now, goats are interesting, and I am thrilled that some people like goats. We are raising these hair sheep, and these hair sheep, these kind of Katahdin St. Croix cross sheep, are about as goaty as a sheep can get. They're way goatier than a wool sheep, that's for sure. And they're kind of the Scottish Highlander of the sheep family, I guess. And so we're doing a lot of goat type work where, for example, we'll run on a lane, let's say a laneway. We'll run a real long oval outside the electric fence of the laneway with the netting, and the sheep will graze under the electric fence. It's off, but it's tall for the cows. The sheep can go under it and graze under it and through it and along the laneways, along the field edges, essentially using the sheep like goats around the field edges and stuff. Goats would do the same thing. Sheep, we can sell sheep for a little more money, and sheep have a little higher acceptance rate in our area. They're just a little easier to sell. A goat is a little more. Goat's a little more ethnic thing than lamb, and so for us, some of it just becomes the ease of marketing. It's just easier for us in our area to market a lamb than a goat.
Okay, and Joel, we have somebody else on the phone here now. Who's calling, please?
This is Amanda from Albany Mountain Homestead.
Well, hi, Amanda. How are you this evening?
I'm doing okay.
Okay.
So I wanted to lead off where Joel was just answering questions when we're talking about someone who's just got a smaller parcel, 4 acres. Mine happens to be heavily wooded. So when you're looking to try to open that area up, is it better to have goats? Or is it, because there's no way we can have cows on our property. We're just too small. So right. How would Joel recommend someone who has a smaller property to begin?
Goats are the go-to critter for something like that. Here's the thing about goats. Goats are browsers. Sheep are grazers. And so goats like to eat about 70% of their forage from their shoulders up and only 30% from their shoulders down. Now, brushy things, brushy brambles, things like that, have a much longer energy cycle in recuperation. So if you defoliate a spice bush or an autumn olive or a multiflora rose, brambles, okay? If you defoliate one of those, it takes them roughly 2 or 3 times longer to come back into their foliage than grass. And that is why goats tend to move an area from long energy cycle brushy stuff to grass, because the goats, what they're doing is they're eating themselves out of their habitat. And so this is the conundrum with goats. People in your situation get goats, and it takes about 4 years to begin to like the goats. So you keep them in, and you don't find them out in the neighbor's rose bush patch, and about 4 years you become comfortable with them. You really like them. This is good, and that's right about the time when the goats have converted it from brush to beautiful pasture, and now you're moving the goats below their shoulders instead of above their shoulders. One of the beauties of goats is that because they do eat primarily above their shoulders, you don't have to move them every day. The daily movement is not nearly as important as it is for a grazer like a horse, a sheep, or a cow, because they're grazing over their defecation. A goat, because they're grazing mostly above their shoulders, they're browsing, they're not grazing over their defecation. And so while it does take a much better fence, they say if the fence won't hold water, it won't hold a goat. It takes a much better fence to hold a goat. The beauty is when you make your fence, you don't have to take it up and put it down all the time. You can move those goats, once a week, that sort of thing, and you can get just as much advantage out of them because they're not grazing over their defecation. As soon as you start inverting that and make those goats eat 70% grazing and 30% above their shoulders, that's when you start getting udder issues, retained placentas, too high protein, too high to feed, hoof problems. All sorts of issues start developing when we don't allow those goats to browse above their shoulder line. And so this is the conundrum with goats, and that's why the people who have been most successful with goats get goats, they convert their own property, and then they do a rent-a-goat thing where they start converting other people's property, so they simply use those goats on other people's property, continue to make the conversion process. And so as long as you understand that the browsing, grazing percentages and ratio and the energy cycle of the browse, and you understand what you're in for, goats are a fantastic animal to do the kind of conversion you're talking about.
All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate your advice.
Okay.
Great.
Thanks for calling. Okay, and I know that there's been somebody trying to call. I think I maybe caught the name of Tracy, but if you call back now, the phone line is open. Here we go. Hello, this is Daryl. Who's calling, please?
Tracy.
Hello, how you doing, Tracy?
Doing good. Hey, I just had a question for your guest.
Be my guest.
Okay, kind of like where he left off with the last caller, where he was talking about the sheep eating, eating in their own defecation, and so we just got into some hair sheep as well, and just was curious what kind of a natural dewormer program he had going on.
Great question. So these sheep are our grandsons. He's 12. He's had them now. It's going on 4 years. He has not wormed them, with anything or on anything once in 4 years. Now, and they are, believe me, they are as clean as anything you'd ever want to see. And so I think that a lot of the answer for this is that they are being moved frequently, and they're eating a lot of rough stuff, combination of rough and tender, but they get because they're in these field edges where they get thistles and multiflora rose and different things. They're getting an incredible diversity in their diet. They're not just eating clover or grass or whatever, and so I think that sheep. I mean, Greg Judy in Missouri, he doesn't do anything to his sheep, and when he started 20 years ago, he ran a 50% mortality for about 5 years. And the wormy ones died, and the ones that didn't. And what happened was, over the course of 5 or 6 years, this is very much like our son Daniel when he started with his rabbits. Started with his rabbits when he was 8, didn't do anything. Half of them died, half of them lived. The point is that if you've got 10 animals, and 5 are wormy and 5 are not, and they both have the same habitat, the same situation, clearly the 5 that are wormy have a weakness for it, and the 5 that aren't have an immunity to it. And so, it sounds, I don't know what, like you're not being a very good animal caretaker or whatever, on the face of it, to not, do something, intervene. But my goodness, we're always wanting to intervene. We've got to intervene here, intervene there. And the problem is, every time we intervene, we reduce our ability to call, actually to find, for the animals to tell us who fits and who doesn't. Crutches, we start finding the ones that are survivors or not. And so, we take this course drives the animal welfare folks crazy when somebody talks like this. But I don't know of another way to make genetic improvement, to make genetic adaptation to your system until you start knocking out some of these props. The problem is most of us can't afford to have a 50% mortality, which is why you need a nest egg or an off-farm job, or you need another enterprise that's carrying you while fortunately our son went through his 50% rabbit mortality when he was 8 years old. So he didn't have to earn a lot of money, and he was able to, to withstand that. And Greg Judy, he was working a town job, and this was a side deal, and so he could weather the mortality. But in both, and I know, many others that have done the same thing, and in every case, it is worth it 10 years down the road when you have a bulletproof flock or herd or whatever, Kit Fayro out at Fayro Cattle Company, he says he's got whatever it is, 4,000 cows. He says, I never pull a calf. People ask him, well, what do you do? What do you do when you have to pull a calf? He said, I shoot the cow. And if you do that over 40 years, and if a cow has trouble calving, if you shoot her, pretty soon you don't have very many cows that have calving problems. It sounds awful, but believe me, as a non-interventionist, what could be more wild-like or natural than letting that happen? We had 2 guys here, Teresa and I, at the house one time. They were from New Zealand, and they had 3,000 sheep. And this was in the fall here, which was the spring over there. They came to see the farm. We had them into dinner, and I'm asking these guys, so wait a minute, it's spring over there. You're lambing, and they both looked at me and grinned, said, yeah, New Zealand, that real heavy, yeah, mate, And I said, you're lambing. You're not at home? Oh no. That's how they survive lambing. They leave and they go home, and the ones that lambed did it, and the ones that didn't did it, and they didn't get ulcers and miss all their sleep 24/7 staying up with sheep, and they say that the way to do it is we go to America during lambing season and let the sheep do what they're going to do. And at the end of the day, it's actually more economical, more long-term progress to actually take a fairly hands-off, survivor genetic type of approach than it is to intervene in everything. That's a much longer answer than I know anybody ever wanted to hear. But it
definitely makes sense. So you're saying, basically, what I'm hearing you saying is you're breeding out anything that's not hanging in there and
that's
producing
right.
good fruit.
That's right.
And only the strong survive.
That's right. That's right.
Okay. Good deal. Thank you very much.
What's amazing is once you can come to that decision emotionally and mentally and spiritually, then it's amazing how fast progress can be made.
Okay, well, thanks again.
Yes, indeed. Thanks for the call.
Okay, and Joel, we have a couple more quick questions here.
Okay.
Except I have to go back and find them.
Time to Sow wants to know, is it safe to compost meat? She said you'd seen that you use your pigs to turn the compost.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. If it'll rot, it'll compost. Yes, indeed. There's nothing as beneficent as compost.
And
in fact, compost. You can even compost bureaucrats. They work real well.
Okay.
If only. Duncan 1900 Homestead wants to know: do you just raise meat cows, or do you also have milk cows?
We have 2 milk cows, but everything else is beef. We'd have milk cows tomorrow if it was legal to sell milk.
And do you have ducks?
We do, for eggs, yes.
Okay.
And we have two of our former interns. Well, one was an apprentice too, and they're gonna. One of them raised ducks last year, and both of them are going to raise some ducks this year on one of our rental farms. I think they're scheduled to raise 750 or something like that, and it'll be interesting to see how it goes. There's definitely a market for ducks. The problem is getting them plucked. It's hard to pluck a duck, and so it'll be interesting to see how they get along. But we hope it goes real well. But our grandson has a flock of ducks for eggs. He does eggs. And there's a tremendous market for duck eggs as well. They're in the netting and they get moved, every couple of days around, and they actually lay better than a chicken. They're quite prolific.
All right, got another call coming in. This is Daryl. Who's calling, please?
Hey, Daryl. This is Leslie with Scratch Made Homestead.
Hi, Leslie. How you doing?
I'm doing really well. I have a question about bees.
Okay, Joel's on the line here. He can hear you.
Okay, great. Up until about a month and a half ago, we had 2 hives for 3 years. 1 swarmed. Then we put trap hives out, and we have interest in that one. But as you've seen in our recent videos, we had a swarm in our barn. And things have gone kind of back and forth, and we've gone from 2 hives for 3 years to 1 hive a month ago to 5 this weekend. Help, any suggestions on knowing, number one, why our original hive swarmed? The hive itself was totally clean. No bugs, no honey, no nectar, no brood, no spider webs or anything like that. And so we just, number one, can't figure out how that happened. And where do we go now? Thank you.
did the hives that swarmed, were there not bees left in the hive? They all left the hive?
No, sir. There was nothing. I had just put out a nectar for them about 3 days before, and then I went down there and they were gone.
Well, as I said, my brother does the bees. I don't, so I'm not a bee expert. I think you're over my pay grade here.
Oh my gosh! I feel honored.
I don't know what to tell you. I don't have an answer for you. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, thank you for.
Well, let me say this. I invite you to Scratch-Made Homestead and King Bee Acres in Stockton, Alabama.
Okay. I'd love to.
Enjoy some of their pecans.
Yes, and I will send you some pecans.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you for your time.
Send me some pecans. I hear pecans are about $2 a pound cheaper than pecans.
Because that's what truck drivers.
Yes, because that's what truck drivers use.
Not what you eat.
Oh goodness, this is funny. We have so enjoyed the show tonight, Sherry and Daryl. Thank you for bringing this. And y'all watch our video series on our swarm season. I mean, we're so new at this and just trying to figure it out as we go along. So y'all have a good night.
Leslie, I want to plug you while you were on the phone. Those chocolate bunnies that I purchased from you in Mississippi. Our daughter-in-law gave them to the kids yesterday. And they loved them. I'm sitting there drooling, thinking, I really want one of those white chocolate bunnies.
Cool, Sherry. I appreciate it. Daryl, I hope you enjoyed your egg as well.
It's still sitting there. He hasn't touched it.
I'm waiting for the right time, and that may be tonight.
Now's the right time.
Yeah. I haven't told my grandson it's here, so it's still a full egg.
Okay, Leslie, thanks so much for calling.
Right.
Appreciate
thanks, y'all.
You take care now. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Joel, can you share with the folks just a little bit about your ongoing schedule this year, as far as maybe some of the exotic places you're heading and places in the States where people could maybe come and see you talk in person?
Sure. Well, Friday this week, I'm heading down to Australia. This will be, I think, my 11th trip to Australia, and I'll be doing two 2-day master classes in Queensland, and then I'll come home for 1 day and then head to Europe, going first to Madrid, Spain, to do a day of media there. They've translated a couple of my books into Spanish, so it's kind of being hosted by a Spanish publisher. And then I'm doing a 2-day master class on a farm there. Then going from there to Amsterdam to do a 2-day master class and a day of media there. It'll be my 5th trip to the Netherlands. And there's really some building that the Netherlands has some problems. They're really having some problems. You know, they were just featured in the National Geographic magazine as, the country that feeds the world, but they are facing some real problems as they intensify everything there, and it's so unnatural, dependent on natural gas. To do their hydroponics, they've got a $2 billion program to dehydrate all the extra manure that's becoming so toxic in the country that they're sending it back on freighters to Paraguay that brings grain to them. I mean, it's just, the Dutch have been frugal traders for a long time, and they're they've done very well at it. but as they move this into the the high tech factory farm system, it's got some interesting things going on. Netherlands, then I go to Austria, and I'm doing a day there with it's the 24th annual regional sustainable agriculture conference, along with Foundations for Farming, which is an African mission kind of group. I'll be there and learning as well, and then from there to the United Kingdom, where I'll be doing a seminar there with the Sustainable Food Trust. And then the day before I come home, I'll be doing half a day of classes at the American School in London for expats and people that are Americans that are stationed in London. And then home. So I leave Friday and get home April 30th, May 1st. So I'll be gone the rest of the month. It's a pretty exciting trip.
Okay, and you're going to be here in the States. You're going to be at a couple Mother Earth News fairs, and you're going to be.
I will. Let's see. I'm looking down the schedule here. I'll be in Louisiana May 19. Then Mother Earth News Fair in Maryland June 3rd, and then we've got the Country Living Workshop at Lehman's in Kidron, Ohio, June 30th.
We're going to see you there.
Yeah, good. I'll be in Portland, Oregon for a Farm and Consumer Legal Defense Fund fundraiser July 2nd. And then the Mother Earth News Fair in Albany, Oregon, August 5th. Another fundraiser for the Farm and Consumer Legal Defense Fund in Stanford, Kentucky, August 10 to 11. I'll be in Missouri, August 18 to a camping program. Family camping program. Then September 16, Mother Earth News Fair in Seven Springs, Pennsylvania. Let's see, where are we here? It's September 21, Springfield, Missouri. This will be a faith-based consortium at Evangel University about biblical stewardship of the land. Then, of course, October 13, we all know what that is. Homesteaders of America Conference in Warren County, Virginia. And then October is going to be taken up with Stockman Grass Farmer Marketing School in Indianapolis, the Pork School in Indianapolis, and then in Dallas, Texas, the Pork School. And there you go. And then we got a couple more things in the year. I'll be at the Acres USA Conference in December. New Hampshire at the Tri-Christian Academy, November 8th. In Utah, Utah Farm and Food Conference, January 4th. And then back to France and Germany in April next year. So there you go.
Okay, I think you just answered one of the questions here because somebody was asking where you're going to be at New Hampshire. And I think
New Hampshire, Somersworth, Tri-City Christian Academy, Somersworth, New Hampshire.
Okay, that should take care of your question, Browncoat Homestead. And Alderman Farm said, we're in Louisiana on the 19th.
Well, let's see. I got to pull it out here. I have a list. Let's see, Louisiana. What month is that? I'm looking for it. Louisiana, the 19th of what?
Mm-hmm. I don't know that
May 19th. Okay.
There we go.
I don't keep this stuff in my head. May 19th. Yes.
They just said on here, Joel. You heard it here, folks. Joel Salatin for president.
Oh, okay. So this is in it's called Campty Field of Dreams at Northwestern State University in Natchitoches, Louisiana. I'm doing a one-day master class there.
Okay. So Alderman's that should take care of your
Anybody who
question.
knows, the event name is Back to Your Roots, a Sustainable Agriculture Conference put on by Northwestern State University, Natchitoches. I guess that's how you say it, Natchitoches, I guess that's right, Louisiana. So if you know where Natchitoches, Louisiana is, I'll see you there May 19th.
Okay. Well, it's been a wonderful evening, and you have been so gracious with your time.
Oh, well, it's been my pleasure, and it's always great to share and hear from people doing great things. And you guys are doing great things, so I appreciate it deeply.
Well,
thank you.
We're just trying to spread the word and keep everybody happy and informed. And,
yeah. Yep.
And
that's good.
It is generous people like you that make what we try to do a lot easier. We certainly appreciate it. So,
good. Well, thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing you when our paths cross again.
Yes, yes, they will cross a couple times this year, as a matter of fact.
Sure will.
Good, good. So very much looking forward to it. Thank you.
All right. And for the folks in the room here, we're going to let Joel go. He's been so gracious, but we will go ahead and do the 2 trivia questions after he's gone for the seed packets, because we still have 60-some people in the room.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's fine.
We'll do that. We'll do that before we shut it down. Joel, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. It's been my pleasure. You guys take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Well, I hope everybody enjoyed themselves tonight. I know I did. Talk about informative.
There we go. Get that over there. Let me get this phone shut down. All right. So.
Was it lately betting the farm? I haven't checked our mail in a couple of days. Thank you, Jason. We're going to go have our 2 trivia questions for the seeds.
Yep.
And
then we'll bid everybody a good evening.
Yes, because I have a doctor's appointment in the morning. Yoo-hoo!
So let's get to our little seed trivia. Okay, same rules as the other trivia. You can only win once every 4 weeks. You must be the first person to answer the question correctly in the chat window as it's received and recorded on the stream here. And that stream is embedded in the screen so everybody can see it. You must send us an email with your address. We ask you to do that within 48 hours, please, to twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com, where we get your mailing address, and we can send you in the mail 5 packs of seeds. Right?
5 packs of seeds.
5 packs of seeds.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, due to the hour, and due to everybody still sticking around here, I'm just going to ask these questions back to back.
Yeah, that's fine.
So, is everybody ready?
And if not, we're going to do it anyway. Night, Papa Truck.
Seed question number 1. What kind of fruit is a pyramid? And I may not have pronounced that correctly.
I don't think you did. But I'm not going to try it. Okay. I'll read that as soon as we're done here.
What kind of fruit is a pyramid? There we go. Green Gables.
Mm-hmm.
Green Gables. An apple is the correct answer on that.
And it's funny because Green Gables, you don't have to email me because I found something that I wrote down earlier and your name and address just happens to be on this piece of paper. So I have it.
Okay, Green Gables. We're going to send you out some seeds.
Yes, we are.
So now we're just going to jump right into question number 2 because of the hour here. What kind of fruit is a kumquat? What kind of fruit is a kumquat? Citrus? Well, that's not good enough.
Hurry up, it's just me, Sarah. You can get this. Green. Nope.
Nope. That's not the answer we're looking for.
Nope.
I mean, I'm not going to say that citrus is a wrong answer. It's just it's too broad.
Bingo.
It's just me, Sarah.
She got it.
It is an orange. It
There you
is
go.
an orange. Okay. So let me see what we
We
have
got
here.
Green Gables, and it's just me, Sarah. And Green Gables, I already have your address. It's just me, Sarah. Email us, twofamilyhomestead@gmail.com. Name and address. And since I have to go out tomorrow anyway, if they're here before I go to the doctor in the morning, I'll stop after my doctor's appointment and get those envelopes in the mail.
Okay.
Thank you all for sticking with us tonight. This has been great.
It has been a wonderful evening. Tomorrow night we have the video editing online deal that if you have any questions or...
An awesome deal. No, Duncan. Brenda, that's on pizzas.
So, geez, I don't know. Anybody got any questions for us? If not, we're going to just ship you off to bed so everybody gets a good night's sleep.
It was a great evening. And there's my bud. There's Sherry,
All right.
my bread-making sister.
Folks, thanks so much for coming by. We appreciate each and every one of you.
And
Thank
Miss
you to the
Leslie.
moderators.
Yes.
Thank you.
All of our moderate. They were all great tonight. Thank you.
And I guess we just see them all later.
See y'all later. Have a great evening. Sleep
Bye-bye.
tight.
Good night.